Hello guys, and welcome to another video in the PHP MVC series. I got a comment here from Artur. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Guys, I suck at pronouncing names. But anyway, I got a comment here asking if we can make some security scripts and cross-site request forgery token for the forms. So what I thought I would do is we will take care of this cross-site request form token thing, and I thought that would be a good thing for us to do because we can make it super easy to use on all of our forms to where we don't really even need to think about it. We just throw it in all of our forms, and it adds a bit of little bit of security. So what cross-site request forgery is basically is an attack that someone can do where they post something to your action. It could be something as simple as changing a get variable inside of a link that someone doesn't expect, and it changes like some sort of shopping cart and adds an additional product to your cart and things like that. People can do it for all sorts of different nefarious reasons. So it's always a good idea to check to make sure that the post data that you're getting is actually coming from the person who is filling out the form. And so what we can do is we can actually set a variable in a session, and we can change that every time the page is loaded and make it super random, so that if anyone tries to even guess it, the likelihood of them guessing the correct token is going to be very, 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 very small, and highly unlikely. And also it's just not going to work out well for them to try to post something. So it's a good idea to do it, and it's super simple to do anyway. So let's add it to our framework, and then what we're also going to do is do a little bit of refactoring, well, a whole lot of refactoring. But don't let that scare you, because it's all easy stuff, and I'm going to guide you through it. So chances are you will break your application if you don't follow these steps exactly. So I do remind you that I have put this on Bitbucket, so you guys can, the link will be in the description, so you guys can get the source code if you screw it up or whatever. But don't just go and get the source code, guys. Follow along with me, and we're going to learn how to do kind of a major refactor along with adding this cross-site request forgery to our application. So what we're going to do, jump in here to the application, and we're going to talk a little bit about the refactor and while we're adding this, because one thing I haven't really liked all along in this MVC project that we've built is the fact that I added this lib helpers, and then we added just procedural functions here. Since we're talking about object-oriented programming, it'd be better to organize some of these functions into their own classes. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with these form helpers. So go ahead and open up the form helpers thing, and in the form helpers we have four methods here, and here's the way we're going to do this. We're just going to get this thing working first, and then we're going to do all of our refactoring, okay, to move this stuff. I might even do the refactor in a separate video if the video gets too long, but I really don't think it's going to be that long. So let's just jump in and see what this thing takes to do. So what I'm going to do is jump into core here, and let's add a new file, and let's call this file FH. Now this is just going to be short for form helpers. I just don't want to type form helpers every time I want to use a function inside there. You guys can call this whatever you want. For me, I'm just going to use FH, okay, both capitalized. And then I'm going to open up some PHP tags, okay, and then we'll say class FH. Open and close our curly braces, and now I'm just going to go back to our form helpers, and I'm going to copy all of these and paste them right here. Now part of this refactor, some of these functions here, we're actually using another function within here, so we're going to have to update that, but it's no big deal. But what we need to do is before each one of these functions, we're just going to say public static. So we're going to make these public static functions so that this FH class does not need to be instantiated. We're just using the functions. We're basically just using this for organization. This also helps with being able to reuse a class somewhere in another project, and just grabbing the whole file and stuffing it in another project. But at any rate, we're going to put all these as public static. So when we call another function, like we need to use the stringify attributes and all of these, to call that on when we're inside of the same deal, we can't use this because this isn't instantiated. These are all static functions. So in that instance, all we do is say self and then colon colon, and that will call this self static function down here. So we'll do that in every one of these instances. Self colon colon. Okay. Now we could just go through our project right now, and anywhere we've used these form helpers, we can actually refactor that. But again, I want to save that for the end because we're going to, sorry, we don't want to do it here. That's stupid. I just was on autopilot there. So we're going to do that at the end, and we'll clean everything up. So I just want to keep the cross-site request forgery a little bit separate. So in order to use cross-site request forgery, what we're going to have to do is generate a token that we store in the PHP session. And so we need two methods, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to add a generate method. We're going to add a generate method. We're going to add a check method that checks to make sure that it's correct. Okay, we're going to do that both in these form helpers, and then we need to add a hidden input to our forms so that we can store that value in the form itself. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to modify our validate functions. We're just going to add a new parameter to that so that we can easily use this you'll see how easy this is to use once we do it. So let's go ahead and add a new public static function, and we'll call this generate token. And this is we'll set a variable equal to token, and what we're going to do is we're going to do open SSL random pseudo bytes, and that's going to get pass an integer, and we're going to pass an integer of 32. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this whole what this does is it generates a random kind of string basically. And then what we want to do to make this super random and make sure that the length is kind of contained or whatever, we'll just do a base 64 encode. All right, so we'll wrap that entire function like that. So that's going to be our token. And then when we generate it, we want to set into the session. So we're going to do that. You know what we could do? Let's use our session set here function. So we'll use session set, and then the name of this is going to be CSRF underscore token, and then the value is going to be token. And then what we want to do is we want to return the token. The reason we're returning it, not just setting the session, is we're going to need this later to put into a form field. So that's it. That's the generate token method. So now we're going to add one more static method. We're going to it's going to be public static function, and then this one's going to be a check token. And it's going to take one parameter. It's going to take the token. We're going to pass the token into it. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to actually return, we're going to do a check here, and we're just going to, so we're going to put parens here, and this is going to evaluate to true or false. So the first thing we want to do is we want to check if it's set. And actually I think we have a method here. So we can actually do exist. So let's use our, instead of using this PHP thing here, let's use exist. So we do session exists, and then we'll pass in the name of that, which is CSRF token. So if it exists, and if let's see, we have one more called get, so we'll get it. So if session get, and then we'll pass in CSRF token, and if that equals the token, which is right here, what we're going to pass in when we're checking it. So basically we're checking, does a session exist called CSRF token? If it does, and that session, the value of that is equal to the token we're passing in, it'll return true. If either one of these other conditions, if it doesn't exist at all, it's going to return false. If it doesn't match, it's going to return false. So we're going to assume if it doesn't match, that somebody's doing something crazy. Somebody's trying to do something that you don't want them doing if this doesn't return true. Okay. And there is one caveat to this whole thing, and I'll get to that in a little bit when we're actually using it. Okay, so that is actually all we need to do here. The only other thing we're going to do is we're going to add another simple method so that we can use this quickly in our forms, and we're going to call this public static function, and we're just going to call it CSRF input. All right, and that's just going to return an input with a type of hidden. Okay, this is just going to be a hidden input, and we'll do the name is going to be equal to CSRF token, and the ID will also be equal to CSRF token, and the value, we're going to leave that blank for a minute. So we'll break out of our string here and concatenate on. And what we actually want to concatenate on here is we're going to generate our token. So we're going to do self generate token. Boom. All right. So what that does is it will generate for us this hidden input if we just call this inside of our forms, and it's going to generate the token as it gets this. So in our forms, we just need to call this function, and it'll create the hidden input and the token all at one shot. And then when we post, we're going to actually do this check token thing. Well, we don't want to do that every single time or remember to have to do that. So what we're actually going to do is update our validate class. So open up the validate class, and right here in our check function, we're going to add a third parameter here. But we need to give this third parameter a default. So we're going to say CSRF check, and we're going to set that equal to false by default. That way, if we don't use it, this function is still going to run, but if we do use it, we'll have to pass true into our check functions. It's super easy to use, just trust me. So before this for each, what we're going to want to do is we're going to say if we're checking right now to see if we want to use it. So if CSRF check, so if that's true, then run whatever's in this. So what we're going to do is let's do FH, let's see, we'll say if not FH check token. So this will run the check. So what we need to do is pass in that check token, okay? And that exists inside the source because this will be the post data that comes in. So we'll say source, and we're looking for CSRF token, okay? So if this doesn't pass, then we're going to add an error to this validation. So this add error, and this will take an array, and we'll give it a message. And we don't need this to be super readable, because if they ever get this message, it's because they've done something, they're doing something kind of bad. I wouldn't do anything like type FU or anything like in there, because something crazy can go bad, and it's not someone intentionally doing something, and we'll talk about that later. But what we'll do is just type in something has gone wrong. Okay? And then the second parameter in this is just going to be CSRF token. All right, let's see. The other thing we want to do here in this if thing is we want to make sure that it actually exists inside of that source. So we'll just say if is set, or we'll say if not is set, and this is going to be an and here, or yeah, both of these have to be true. So if not is set source CSRF token. Okay. That's all we're going to have to do to our code to do this check. The next thing we need to do is add this to all of our forms. So let's pick a form to add it to. Let's go ahead and add it to our login form here, since that's what I have open. So I'm going to go ahead and open the inspector here so I can show you what this does. So let's go and find that login form. So this is actually going to post to register login action. So if you look right here, we have validation, and then when we run the validate check function, here's our post that's being passed in. Here's our parameters. So for a third parameter, I'm just gonna pass true. And that's all we need to do in the controller action to actually check the cross-site request forgery. So I'm going to hit refresh, and now if I post this, we're going to get an error. All right. So let's see. So if you ever get this error, it's because we haven't added it to the form yet. And you can see also that this shows something has gone wrong. So that's what we want to do. Now what we have to do is add that hidden input, and this is super simple, guys. So we're going to go to our views, go to register, open your login form, and right here at the top of the form, underneath the form tag, we're just going to echo out. So we'll open our PHP tags, and we're going to echo out FH CSRF input, and that is a function, and boom. This is magically going to work, unless I've done something wrong, which is possible. You've probably already seen it if I have. All right, so I'm going to look, if we inspect in here, okay, so you can see that we have this hidden input, and this is generated by that form helper. And you can see that the value is this random string right here. Now, every time I refresh the page, that changes. And it changes pretty dramatically. So if you look at it, it's different each time. So if I hit login, now I just have the username required and password is required. But if I come in here and I delete one of these, let's say they got it mostly right, but they missed one or they got one wrong, and I hit login, what happened? Oh, I forgot to hit enter. So I delete one of these, click out of here, hit login, and something's wrong. I screwed something up. So what's going on here? Let's see, I'm gonna preserve logs, login. Let's just CSRF pass is equal to FH check token we'll do source CSRF token, and then here we'll just say if not CSRF pass. So let's just let's dump and die CSRF pass. So it passes. Okay. For some reason you can't do the not there. It's just, I don't know. So what we can do here is we'll say if not is set and we'll do an or. And we'll say if not is set source CSRF token. Get rid of this. Alright, let's try again. Okay, so we don't get anything there, so let's go and try to manipulate this now. I'm going to add an A to the end of that so that the tokens won't match. Okay, good. So the tokens don't match and we have something that's gone wrong. So actually what we could do is we can actually put in the correct credentials, but this token could be wrong. And now it doesn't allow us to log in. So that's a good thing. So that token's working correctly now. Just as a note, let's go ahead and update our login thing to have the right class for those errors. And that class is form errors. Refresh, there we go. So let's hit enter. So now we're not getting that because the token's correct. But if I manipulate that token or it's wrong, we're going to get that message. Okay, so now the cross-site request forgery token is working for this form. Now that we have that figured out, it's going to be very quick for us to add it to every single form. So we can close the login form for now. And let's close this and validate. And the register, there's one more. We have the register action we can add it to. So let's go ahead and add it there. So right here in this validate check, go down here and add true. So now, before we do anything, if we go to register, we get something that's gone wrong. We also get that because we haven't added to the form yet. So now let's go to our view for that. So go to views, register, and let's, while we're here, go ahead and update our class here for this. So it's form errors. Okay, and then we need to add the input. So go ahead and echo out FH CSRF input. Alright, we'll hit enter. So now, boom, we don't get that message. And if we go ahead and inspect this, we can see that that is right there. I'm going to manipulate that. Hit register again. Boom, it's working. Also, this button doesn't look right down here, so let's fix that while we're here. We'll just fix stuff as we go. I think what we have to do to fix that is just change that from pull right so it's not floated to text right. Yeah, so that fixes that. Okay, let's think about all of our other forms. So let's go ahead and go back to log in. So we'll log in this time for real without any weirdness going on. It should, all right, logged us in. So we had some forms. The last form is this add a contact form because we use that same form for edit as well, but we'll have to add it to both those actions. So go ahead and close register. Actually close all this. We'll open up our contacts controller, and right here for add, inside the check for our third parameter, we're going to add true, and then jump down to your views, go to contacts, go to partials, and then open up the form. And right here, update this class, and then we're going to go ahead and echo out our hidden input. So it's FH CSRF input. Alright, so now that form should have it. So let's go ahead and try to manipulate it. So inspect, we'll change that value, and boom, there you go. Cross-site request forgery. It's on. Okay. Also like how all the fields turn red if they do that. Like, you screwed up. You tried to manipulate my token, damn it. Alright. So now we have to actually do the same thing for edit. So if you go to My Contacts, the edit form will not have that. The form has it, but the action isn't checking for it. So go back to the Contacts Controller, and again, that was on Edit Action. So what we can do here is the validation check, just do comma true. So you can see a pattern here. In order to check for cross-site request forgery, we just need to add in our validation check a third parameter and set that to true. And then on the form, we just have to add that to the form. See how simple it is to use now that we have it built and working correctly? It's super easy. And that's the way it should be. That's what a framework allows you to do. Alright guys, I think every single form in our site that we have so far is working with that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. And then we're going to come back in the next video, since it kind of went long with debugging, and do the refactor. So I'll see you guys in the next video, and we're gonna actually move all those form helpers to that FH class and refactor all of our code that's using that stuff. Alright guys, see you in the next video.